Hello, friend, and welcome back to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by somebody like-minded and who is in the same space as myself, and that is Stephanie Crassweller. She is a leading expert in women's hormones and metabolism. She's the founder of VitalityOET and the host of the top 1% ranked podcast called Metabolism and Menopause. She has a bachelor's and a master's degree in kinesiology with over a decade of clinical and coaching experience. She's helped thousands of women worldwide reclaim their energy, their health, and their vitality through perimenopause and beyond. I so love that. She's a recognized speaker who shared stages with prominent people such as Ed Milet, as well as Lane Norton, who I think he's amazing, and Sean Stevenson. She's built a multiple seven-figure global brand and is regarded as one of the top voices in women's wellness today. Through her work, she gives women not only the tools to transform their health, but the hope and confidence to thrive in every stage of life. So welcome, my friend Stephanie. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great, great. So excited for you to join us today. And I love that we're like-minded on, all things menopause and keeping our health and our vitality as we age. And I thought we'd really get started. I've actually been listening to a few podcasts, and I will say they have been a male interviewing a male about weight loss. And it's interesting because they get in this discussion where weight loss applies to women, and they always bring up perimenopause and menopause because that's a hot topic right now. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I don't agree with some of the things that they say. And these are well-known, well-respected people, and they're talking about it's just all calories in and calories out. And I'm not saying it's not part of the equation, but I think you and I think similarly, it's not all about calories in, calories out for women, particularly in this phase of life. And so can you share your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. So we're actually writing a book on this right now because it is such a big topic, right? And it's not just how much you eat and how much you exercise off. There are so many things that are going to obviously influence the calories that you put in your mouth, like your mood, your hormones, like your energy levels, your blood sugar crashes. Those are all going to influence the food choices that we make and things like that. But also the calories outside of the equation, like it's not just calories in, calories out, because there are so many things that are going to dictate, is your body good at taking food and turning it into fuel, or is your body going to favor taking food and storing it as fat? And there's two really big pathways that I always like to talk about. I like to kind of label them simply our fat burning pathway and our fat storing pathway. And there are a lot of things that are going to influence, can you even get into that fat burning state, or is your body stuck in this storage state? Because when this happens, when fat burning is blocked and that storage pathway is overstimulated, your body is constantly being told, we have enough, let's store, even though you're eating less and moving more and cutting calories and cutting carbs and fasting and doing all the workouts. It doesn't matter, right? And so there are numerous things that we find that block this fat burning pathway, like inflammation. We know inflammation goes up when estrogen goes down. Blood sugar will push us into that storage pathway, which also gets worse when estrogen goes down. When we have less muscle mass, we're going to see that our body is also going to struggle with this, right? Our body's not as good at taking food and turning it into fuel. Your thyroid, if it slows down, less likely to use food as fuel, more likely to use it to store it as fat. It blocks that fat burning pathway. We see this with so many things, and hormones and the decline that we experience during perimenopause and menopause typically push us more into that blocked fat burning state and push us into that storing state compared to before. And so we have to acknowledge that stress changes, right? Like we have this bucket of what I like to call stress, that your body, you can dump water into this bucket, and if that bucket overflows, stress goes up and we see hormones tank, we see blood sugar get worse, thyroid get worse, digestion get worse, there's more inflammation, worse energy, our detoxification is worse, we store more fat, we lose more muscle, all the things that we experience during perimenopause and menopause. So the stress bucket overflows. But when our hormones decline, this bucket gets smaller and smaller, but you haven't taken any of that stress out of that bucket. That bucket was already pretty full. Now it's overflowing. And this is where we see the weight gain because of the inflammation, the cortisol, the drop in hormones, the worse blood sugar control, all those things. And so now we push harder because we go, oh my gosh, I want to lose weight. And so we have more workouts. We do more cardio. We cut our calories more. We cut our carbs more, right? We're sleeping less. We're sacrificing sleep and going to the gym at 5 a.m. And that stress bucket, just you keep pouring water in and it just keeps overflowing. And we're like, why isn't this working? And it's because you are adding stress that you don't have room for. So what we need to do is actually take water out of that bucket so you have room to add the stress of eat less, move more, because otherwise it makes you gain weight. This happened to me. I was in a deficit. Things were going okay. Hit 1,600 calories. Boom. Weight exploded out of nowhere. I had to pull back my training. I had to increase my calories, focus on sleep. Boom. Lost 7 pounds in like a month. It was crazy. I've never lost weight that quickly. And it was just all this fluid retention and inflammation coming down because I was taking water out of that bucket. Now my fat burning pathways could open and fat loss is actually possible. I wasn't stuck in that storage state anymore. And we don't realize the very things that we're trying to do are making it so much worse because the bucket has changed. And you're like, well, I haven't changed anything. The amount of water I'm putting in hasn't changed, but the bucket has changed. Internally, things have changed. And so we got to match the outside actions to what our internal body can handle. Because before it was like, oh, if I do this, my body will respond this way. And now it's a lot. And we got to face it once we hit our 40s, our 50s, our late 30s. Demands of life increase. We start taking care of sick parents. Our job changes. We've got like kids that we're worried about, or we're becoming empty nesters. Like there's a lot of change that happens. Divorces, moving, right? And it's a lot at once. And then we're also just adding even more stress into that bucket of, eat less, move more, which is, it's wild. So it's not just, oh, if you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. No, like, can your body actually take food and turn it into fuel? Or is your body turning it into fat? And we see this all the time. And it's so frustrating when people are like, well, you're just not in a deficit. I'm like, oh, great. That's wonderful advice. What do you expect me to do? Eat 600 calories? Like, come on. Insane.
Yes. 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 So I love how you talked about this bucket concept, and what you threw out was a lot. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how can we sift out all this information for the audience? So here's where I'm going to go is you talked about so many aspects that impact a woman in this phase of life, this specific phase of life. So we're not talking about the 20 or 30-year-old here. We're in this one specific phase of life. And I just want to peel back some layers of what's in this bucket. So I want to come back to hormones. I'm going to put a pin in that. I'm going to also put a pin in stress because I think that's huge. I agree with you tremendously. Once we get that stress figured out, women can really start to move the needle. But I don't want to overlook, right? Because we did talk about it does matter in the terms of what we feed ourselves, and it does matter under exercise. So let's start with we'll start with the food component, because there's not just one component. I don't want women to hear it's just one thing and that's going to be the magic bullet. I think we were sold that in the 80s. It's this one diet, and the fad diet just kept moving. And so we would lose some weight, but then we'd gain it on, and some of us would gain more. I remember my mom going through those cycles, and it's so frustrating. So I don't want anybody to hang their hat and listen to this and say it's one thing. So let's break down the parts of that bucket which do move the needle when you work on them. So diet. So I want to focus in, because I think a lot of women hear keto or Atkins or whatever. And I think a lot of women think carbs are demonized, right? Like, I can't have the sugar. I can't have carbs. I can't have dessert. I have to say that for goodbye. Or I can't stick to a low carb diet. Therefore, I'm not going to lose weight. So they just give up without even trying. So I want to attack carbs a little bit. So if you could just break down, where do you feel carbs fall into the arena when it comes to a weight loss strategy in this phase of life?
Oh man. So carbohydrates are key. Like, this is something we have done keto on 3 clients total out of the thousands we've coached. And it's been for like a 6-week period, like 8-week period max, to force their body to switch fuel sources. And then we got back into carbs and we were good. And we see a lot of the times keto makes people insulin resistant because then their body doesn't know how to utilize carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are so important because it lowers that stress. It literally takes water out of the bucket so you have room to add the stress of exercise and things like that. The less that you are sleeping, the more active that you are, the more stressed out that you are, the worse energy you have. You probably need more carbohydrates. You got to add them in the right way, obviously. Like, we always want to make sure we're having most of our protein and veggies first before dipping into carbs to help stabilize those blood sugars, because if those are erratic, pushes us into that storing state, right? But carbohydrates are so key for providing you with energy and bringing cortisol down. So what happens is when we're in that stress state, when we're go, 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 and a lot of us are like, I'm not stressed, I feel fine. No, it's whenever you're on, right? It's whenever you are giving energy to something. So teachers, doctors, stay-at-home moms, nurses, right? Like we are always on and giving all the time. And that requires energy. And your body goes, oh, I need energy to meet the demand of this, right? And sometimes it's just doom scrolling. Maybe it's a looming deadline. Like your body doesn't know if it's a bear, if it's someone posted something that pissed you off on social media. And so your stress hormones go up, right? And so what happens is when the cortisol goes up, that's your body's cue to, okay, we need energy to meet this demand. If you don't have food or carbohydrates, your body will just dump sugar from your liver into your bloodstream. If there isn't enough stores, then it's going to break down muscle mass and dump it into your bloodstream. And so what happens is you have sugar in your bloodstream, which is good, so that you have energy to do the things. This is why people who start fasting at the beginning of their fasting journey usually have like, wow, I have mental clarity and I feel so good and energized. It's because your cortisol is up, your adrenaline's pumping, it's giving you this energy. And so it's dumping sugar into your bloodstream to meet the demand. Insulin then has to come up to bring that sugar into the cells, right? But if this happens all the time, where we are constantly stressed all the time and we're never actually giving ourselves carbohydrates so cortisol doesn't need to go up because your body has the energy that it needs to meet the demand, you become more insulin resistant because insulin comes in, brings our blood sugar down, right? Takes the sugars to the cells. Then, oh, we don't have enough carbohydrates or enough energy or we're still stressed. Okay, dump more sugar into our bloodstream, even in the absence of carbs, even in the absence of eating anything at all. And we see this all the time. We have clients who have CGMs who their blood sugar spikes more from poor night's sleep. The next day, their blood sugar is significantly higher if they are less active throughout the day compared to usual, so lower steps. And also if they are fasting and stressed, we find their blood sugar start to get quite erratic. And so it's understanding, is low carb like actually something that your body can tolerate? Because low carb will naturally make that threshold of water getting pumped into that bucket at a higher rate, right? And so carbohydrates actually help bring the water out of the bucket so you have room to push in the gym, that you have room for your hormones to be produced. All of that requires energy. And if we're not getting enough from carbs, we really struggle. And not to mention carbohydrates are also where we get our fiber from. Fiber is how we get prebiotics in our gut. That helps with gut health, that helps with motility, that helps with hormonal balance and estrogen detox. And so if we're not getting enough of that, we also see cholesterol tends to get higher. We tend to see inflammation go up higher. And this doesn't mean go eat a Krispy Kreme donut. I'm talking about, have whole grains, have rice, have some fruit, have some potatoes. It's crazy to me. And so if you have carbohydrates throughout your day at each meal, your energy will be better, your cravings will be less, you'll be able to handle stress so much better. You'll be amazed at how much better you feel. And that lowered stress is then going to open those fat burning pathways and allow you to actually go into a fat loss phase. And we see this all the time. And it is probably one of the hardest things for women to wrap their heads around because we've all been told carbs are so bad. Carbs are so bad. We're so scared to eat a potato, yet we'll have chocolate, yet we'll have wine, right? It doesn't make sense. We've been so brainwashed that potato bad. It's one ingredient, it's a potato, and it's filled with, serotonin, which actually makes you feel good. Potatoes can make you happy. Have your potatoes.
Yeah. It's so interesting because this podcast did start off as all around alcohol. And it's funny, you just said it, it's 100% carbs. There's no protein in it. There's no fat in it. It's 100% carbohydrates, right? And a lot of times mixed drinks could be filled with sugar on top of that. So
And it's a carcinogen. We know it's not good.
100%.
Any benefit to you.
100%. Yes. I could get on a whole soapbox right there. But yeah, some things get a hall pass mentally because they're socially acceptable, or it's just a habit they've fallen into that they've no longer questioned how beneficial or unbeneficial it is. Yeah, but we demonize certain things. And of course, I think alcohol maybe does deserve that, but we also demonize things that are healthy for us. And I think, like you're saying, a lot of women do fall into that black and white thinking around carbohydrates because they think, oh gosh, can't touch it. Or if I do, it's just going to instantly, if even thinking about it attaches to my thighs, is what I hear a lot. And like a lot of things, moderation is designed for us so that our bodies stay in that Goldilocks zone, right? So we're not taking away things so we feel deprived and like we can't have creme brulee every now and then or something. Because you're right, if we don't feed our body and give our body like sugar and carbohydrates, it's going to lose the ability, right? Like if you don't use your muscles, if you lay in a hospital bed for a week, you're atrophying and your brain's going to like lose the ability to use those muscles and they're going to go away. So I agree with not taking something out of the diet wholeheartedly, unless it's alcohol, but carbs in general, right? We do need them. And carbs are vegetables. So we need all those nutrients that come from those lovely vegetables and the flavonoids. And like you said, the prebiotics, the postbiotics, all the things. So good. I think we've got clear on diet, right? And we want to be really focusing on those things that are going to rev up fat metabolism and open up that pathway and shut down or at least minimize fat storage pathway. And so I think a lot there, the next logical place to flow then, because a lot of that is hormone based, right? And when we talk hormones, I always like to say a lot of brains, when they hear the word hormones, they instantly think sex hormones. There's a lot of other hormones at play, right? We got the thyroid, we got insulin, we've have ghrelin and leptin and your hunger hormones. We've heard of the hunger hormones. So when I'm talking about being hormonally balanced, as well as you, it's like we're not just talking sex hormones, we're talking the other hormones which have a bigger impact on our belly size, on how much weight we carry around, and how much adipose tissue. So where do you see hormones and how do you help your women focus on the hormones that are going to really open up that fat store or that fat promoting and fat burning pathway?
Honestly, so there's a few things I want to touch on here is like estrogen, yes, when our hormones decline, it will make it more challenging. It does require more effort to, see the changes that you want to see. And there's multiple reasons for that. Like estrogen, when it goes down, we see increased inflammation. Okay, that blocks fat burning. It makes our blood sugar control worse, which pushes us into our fat storing state, right? We're going to see that it's also going to affect ghrelin and leptin. So it takes us longer to feel full, or there's a delay, and our hunger hormones can increase a lot more quickly. We're also going to see its impact on being able to build muscle. When estrogen goes down, it is harder to build and maintain muscle mass because that muscle building signal now decreases. And so you have to be so much more intentional. And so when estrogen goes down, I like giving the analogy of like she's the mama of the household, like when she's the one who packs the lunches. She gets the groceries. She cleans. She does laundry. She gets everything organized and everyone's schedules are good and you're good to go, right? When mom gets sick, the house goes in disarray. The fridge is a mess. There are dishes in the sink. The laundry is piling up. There's like dog fur everywhere. People are running late. It's terrible. It's a gong show, right? And when you think of it, is it mom's fault? No. That's a lot of responsibility to put on one person. That shows me that the rest of the household system isn't pulling their weight. She's been making up for everybody else. And so when we hit perimenopause and menopause, when we see estrogen start to decline, she exposes everything that she has been holding together that you've just been getting away with. So the way that you're eating, the fasting, the stress, the lack of sleep, the highly processed foods, not getting enough protein, avoiding carbohydrates, the erratic calories are higher some day, lowers other days, lots of alcohol, all of those things she was kind of dealing with. And so she really exposes and pulls back the curtain and is like, look at the crap I've been dealing with for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Now you have to deal with it because I'm done. Is basically what happens. And so a lot of us are like, oh, it's all menopause's fault. But it's no, she has put in her time. She has put in her effort. And now we have to start addressing everything else. When we're looking at hormonal balance, We're looking at progesterone to estrogen because you can have low estrogen, but if progesterone's too low comparatively, now you have estrogen dominant symptoms. That leads to more PMS type symptoms, more mood swings, more belly fat accumulation. We see testosterone start to decline. That makes it even harder to build muscle mass. That can also make you feel like when your androgens are higher, you tend to be more like angry, ragey, that kind of stuff. We see our insulin, right? If we've been fasting, some days are high calorie, low calorie, high carb, low carb, avoiding carbs for too long, super high stress, poor sleep, insulin's going to be all over the place. That's going to push you into fat storage. Thyroid function, we know that low carb diets will actually slow down thyroid, which is not good because your thyroid determines how many calories your body burns at rest. So when it slows down, your body burns less calories at rest. If your body burns less calories at rest, obviously harder to lose weight, much easier to gain weight, right? You're going to be more sluggish, because more tired because your body's not good at taking food for fuel. It's not good at turning it into energy, stores it as fat instead, right? So we have all of these hormones in our body. Cortisol is the main one because cortisol tanks like all hormone production and like sky high insulin. And that's not a recipe for weight loss at all. And so this is where I see a lot of people where it's like, oh yes, I got to fix my hormones. It's like, okay, but what's causing the chaos in the first place? It is almost always under eating, low carb, inconsistent caloric intake, and poor sleep, high stress. Like it is almost always a combination of those, if not all of them. And so we really need to understand that, yes, we're afraid to eat more because we think, oh, if I eat more, I'm going to gain weight. But we see the opposite a lot of the time where people maintain and they start having better energy because your metabolism is like a fire. If you're not giving it enough fuel, that fire goes down. Right? If you're giving it adequate fuel at a regular rate, it's more consistent. Your body is more predictable. It's able to burn more consistent calories all the time, right? And so this is where understanding how your body works as a whole system is so important because we're all just like, eat less, move more, or, oh, I must just take HRT, which has great benefits, right? We know that, if your body can use it. You hear all the stories of people who go on HRT and they gain weight. They feel worse. Symptoms are worse. And it's like, can your body break it down? Can it use it? Can it process it through your liver? Can it get rid of it? Otherwise, if you're already going into a body that's like not metabolically healthy, one that's already struggling with blood sugar control and inflammation, it is just like dumping gasoline on a fire. And so this is where understanding that, if you're not having a great time on GLPs, if you're not having a good time on HRT, if, things aren't working, there's something internal that's like causing it to not work, right? We need to address the system first. So that way, if you do decide to go that route or you want to go that route, your body can actually benefit from it and respond in the way that you want it to respond, right? But you can't just take it and assume you're going to be better. That's not how it works, right? So
Yeah. So you laid out a great overview of a lot of the different hormones that are at play. When you're working with your clients, are you helping them understand their hormone levels, get them tested? Because I think that's a key piece. When I'm working with my clients, it's like I want to see their blood work. I want to understand it on a level for me, and then as well as let them really pull back the curtain, because I say that because they may not have a doctor that sits down with them or a provider that sits down with them or even gets the right blood work. Do you find that that's a piece that you have to do some education around with your clients?
Oh, yeah. We do Dutch hormone testing with everyone because we do like to see like where your detox pathway's at. Is your body good at breaking stuff down? Because if it's not and you go to take HRT or a GLP, you're probably going to end up in a way worse position. Where is like some general inflammation? Where is your neurotransmitters? Where are your stress hormones? How is that fluctuating throughout the day? Because we want to get a good idea of like, okay, we do a whole health history, your symptoms, your past dieting history, take a snapshot of your hormones, the type of hormonal symptoms you're having to see what is contributing, what is the likely root cause, because you can learn so much from Dutch testing. We take in blood work too, obviously, but like I like to see what is your body prioritizing, right? Because we can really see you're in a high stress state, your body is pushing androgens to be super high, which explains the rage, which explains poor blood sugar, which explains all these other things. Or, oh yeah, your progesterone's really low because of XYZ. Like you can get such a beautiful full picture and then start picking the puzzles and you keep asking, well, why is this like this? Well, why is this like this? And you keep going back. And again, it's always going to come down to blood sugar, inflammation, sleep, stress, and doing the right kind of exercise. It is almost always always what it's going to be, right? Eating enough food, getting enough carbs, it's almost always going to come down to those foundational pieces. But the thing that people don't realize is we're trying to take water out of this bucket so we can add the stress of fat loss. So people will reverse diet. They'll do their supplements. They'll do the increasing calories, increasing their carbs, changing their workouts, which is great. But then you have to sit there for a while. And people are like, well, no, I got up to my numbers. I want to go into fat loss. It's like, no, no, no. Now that we got your bucket to this place, we have to allow time every day. A tablespoon of water comes out of there. And so we got to wait, depending on how much water is in there, we have to allow time. And some people's buckets empty out more slower than others. And so you're stuck in this waiting period, which feels like lost and frustrating. And you're also not putting in as much effort because you've kind of like figured out how to hit your numbers. And now you're kind of bored and you're like, well, I'm not putting in as much effort. So now I'm really struggling. And like, I feel like I'm not working hard enough. Maybe this isn't working. I feel like I'm not utilizing my coaching enough. I feel like I'm not utilizing this, that, the other. And it's like, no, no, this is the most important part. Taking out as much water as we can so then we can add that stress. It's not going to overflow and then we can be in a fat loss phase for a longer period of time for you to get the results, come out of it, and then scoop up the water from the stress of a fat loss phase. And then, we can go through a couple rounds of that. But people don't realize that that waiting period of allowing your body to adapt is so incredibly important. People are like, I want to go into fat loss within 3 months. I'm like, honestly, like I just posted on my socials the other day on my story. Like we had a woman who she's down 30 pounds now, but for the first 7 months, no change on the scale, like just up and down 1 pound, just consistently up and down, focusing on healing, went into fat loss. In a year, she lost 30 pounds. Amazing. And that was with like fat loss breaks, right? We're doing some maintenance phases in between, did incredible. But most people don't give time for that bucket to empty, which is so critical in your ability to be able to add more, which is the stress of a fat loss phase.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you say that because I also think like there's so many women that when I work with them, they want instant results, whether it's like drinking or weight loss, whatever. But it's about building consistency. Like that's the number one habit. If you can build consistency, your results will come. It's just a matter of time. You might have to tweak a few things along the way, but the results come. So I like how you're hammering home the same idea. That's why I loved habits in the name of my podcast title, is because like we need to be consistent with what we do. We can't just like not drink for a week and think we're not going to have cravings.
Like you also have to think of like, look at an elite athlete.
Yeah.
They go back to acting like a beer season athlete who's like playing volleyball at the pub, drinking on their off season. No. They have like habits that they maintain so they can maintain their elite athlete status. You can't go from elite athlete to acting like a beer league athlete and expect to maintain the stamina, the strength, the physique, the energy of an elite athlete, right? And we're exactly the same, but we're like, no, no, no. I'm only going to be, the athlete for 4 weeks. And then I'm expecting to go back to beer league and get results from my 4 weeks, but then also not have to maintain it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's such a backwards mentality. Like you have to understand this is not just something you do so you can get on with life. This is now your life. This is now the habits that you do so you can live the life that you want, right? It's not just something you do in the meantime. Like this is a life transformation, identity transformation that's really hard for people to grasp. And it takes time. It takes time.
I agree 100%. And I see that all the time as well. Yeah. The identity shift is big. Yeah. And that's what's going to keep you going, right? If you don't have that identity shift, you're going to be ping-ponging from the life you want versus
the rest of your life.
Yep. The life you're living versus the life you really want to be living. Yeah. So important that you touched on that. Now let's come back to stress. I know you've mentioned it a few times, but I think it's one of the key hormones. Cortisol, right, is our stress hormone, and it's good for us. I don't want people to think we can't live without cortisol. It supports.
So you would die,
right? It supports so much. So it's not bad. It's just if it's raised all the time, it's bad, or if it's so low and in the tank, and that's what adrenal fatigue is, right? It's like you've just been giving, going. And then the body and the adrenals just kind of stop working. And that's where a lot of people hit burnout or like, I feel like a pancake and I can't get out of bed. And nobody wants to be there, right? Because it takes forever to come back and get those adrenals back online. But I think a lot of people are like skirting the edge. right? Like they keep on the gas and then like, okay, I'll take a break for 4 hours or 3 hours. And that's all they give themselves. Like, and then they hit the gas the other 6.5, days of the week. And then it's like, oh, I get an hour or two for me. And that could be really detrimental. So I want to also put a pin in. I want your thoughts on intermittent fasting after this question, but I'm just putting it out there so I don't forget to ask you that. So first up, let's talk about cortisol and it's the stress's role on fat and fat burning and fat storing.
Yeah, so cortisol she is the queen master hormone. Like, just like we say, like estrogen handles the house, like cortisol rules the world. Like she controls everything. She reigns and what she says goes. And so the thing with cortisol is like when it's elevated chronically over time, because we never take time, you're like, I'm not stressed. When's the last time that you actively worked to bring your heart rate and breathing rate down? Like, you don't. Like, when do you slow down? People do not, right? We are so conditioned to be productive, to be go, 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 to be the good girl, to like not ruffle any feathers, but also be high achieving and the best mom and the best daughter and the best sister and to help with our parents. Like, there's just so much on our shoulders. And when we think about it, we're like, oh, I'm not stressed. No, you're suppressing your stress. Just because you don't acknowledge it does not mean it's not happening. Your body is still perceiving it. Whenever it feels like you are having to expend energy, that is a stress. And if all you do all day is expend energy and then your downtime is scrolling, which the light from your phone drives up cortisol, you are literally never slowing down. It is just running rampant all day. And when cortisol is elevated, she's that puppeteer master, all of a sudden hormones decline. So you thought progesterone was low before? Boom, she is tanked. This is why some people, as soon as like they hit that perimenopausal stage, start experiencing like really, really bad symptoms. It's typically because progesterone is dropping at such a fast rate because cortisol is preventing you from being able to produce it. And then you're stuck in this estrogen dominant state, and then estrogen dominance is like doing its whole thing. Like, it is chaos. Our blood sugar gets worse. Our thyroid function slows down in stress. We know this. We see it all of the time where your body does not have enough active thyroid hormone. We see that your digestion slows down. Cool. Now there's more bloating and inflammation, which blocks that fat burning. Your liver detoxification slows down. When this happens, more toxins accumulate. Our body needs to put it somewhere so that it doesn't harm us. It gets stored in fat cells. That changes the physical structure of your fat cells, making them even harder to break down. And those fat cells now emit even more inflammation, blocking fat burning even more. We see muscle loss. We see worse energy. Our sleep is more erratic. Like, our blood sugar swings are more erratic. We have more cravings. You can't tell me that all of that is going to make it better for you to lose weight, right? And then we're pushing with more cardio, more fasting, more cutting carbs, more crazy workouts. No, like, you're just making it so much worse. And I think the hardest part is that we are so we're so bad at just stuffing stuff down because it's inconvenient to feel our feelings because it takes time and we have to be productive all the time, right? And I think it's such a wild like process in our brains and how we do that, but it's true. Like, we know that like unexpressed emotions and feelings are going to increase your cortisol. We know this. We see that.
And increase your risk for cancer.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, if you reach when the body says no, it's crazy. That book, you have to read it. It will blow your mind. It will change your view on everything. But just because you don't acknowledge that you are stressed does not mean that you are not. We see this all the time. I'm like, I'm fine. I feel great. My stress used to be worse before, right? And like, okay, just because it was worse before doesn't mean you're not stressed now. It means you might be a little less stressed. Body's still stressed, and it's holding on to all that stuff from before. Like, I had a pretty rough childhood in terms of like trauma and abuse and things like that. And for me, my stress tolerance is not good. Like, when I'm in fat loss phases, 6 weeks is my max, and then I got to give myself a break and then go back down because my body's tolerance level is not that good. And it sucks because you're like, but I used to be able to do it. And my stress isn't as high as it was back then. Like, my stress now is so different. It's like good stressors of like family and work that I enjoy, and it's amazing. But I need to work with my body. And my stress tolerance is not that great. So it's understanding how big my bucket is, how much water I can actually put into it, and how much time it takes me to take it out, right? It takes time, and everyone's process is going to look a little bit different based on their dieting history, based on your lifestyle. Nutrition plays a big role here, right? And so it's just really understanding that just because you don't acknowledge that you're stressed doesn't mean that you're not. And so I think that's the biggest thing for people to like understand.
Yeah. And two caveats that you said, I just want to highlight on is like, just because we don't feel it means we might even be suppressing it because we're not allowing ourselves to feel. And then you followed up with saying something to the nature of, we think it's inconvenient to feel our feelings.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange because we're humans. We're human beings with feelings. So by like saying whatever percentage of us that does the feeling part, that's not allowed. We're like rejecting ourselves. We're suppressing ourselves. And
We're making ourselves sick.
Yes, we are causing our own sickness. We're causing more of our own stress because we are not getting in touch with the self that wants to be expressed and felt and heard. So I love how you were giving space for women to express when they are stressed. It doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 stress. It doesn't have to be the big stressors. Everybody's like, oh, if it's not the big stress. I'm not getting divorced. I'm not moving. They go through that list of 5. It's like, well, no, I took my dog to the vet the other day because he had bitten like his leg up. And it looked so horrendous. It's like all his fur, his white fur is gone. It's bright red. It looks like he has, just fallen off of his bike and scrubbed the road. And it's bright red. And I take him to the vet and he's like panting and he's nervous because it's the vet. And I start noticing my blood pressure is up and I get in the car and he gets in the car and I can hear him just like do a big sigh and they put the cone of shame on him. And I felt bad because he looked pathetic. But I got in the car and I just needed to take like some deep sighs. Like you were saying, like just acknowledge that was stressful. Because I was feeling his stress, but I was wanting to be there to calm him and be his emotional support animal, and then I got to the car and I'm like, okay, be with these feelings and just like, let's calm, breathe so I can reduce my stress because that was a stressful event. And so giving ourselves that permission to take the 3 minutes, the 5 minutes, the 25 minutes, the 2.5 hours, whatever it takes. But we are human, right? And we should acknowledge that part of us. And when we do feel better. And the
way better.
come down. Yeah. So I love how you highlighted that. All right. So now let's pivot to that question around intermittent fasting. And here's why I'm going to ask this. I'll give some context around this. So I get a lot of women who says, oh, I tried the fasting thing. It worked. And then it stopped working. Right? It's like, oh, it's the old diet that used to work and now it doesn't work. And sometimes I get questions around, well, I know it's a stressor for my body. And I know it's, like you said, it's going to raise cortisol. It is a stressor on the body when you do fasting. It's a stressor to do sauna. It's a stressor to do cold plunge. So help us understand, like, for that perimenopause or menopause woman, would you recommend intermittent fasting as a strategy? What are your thoughts around it? I know it's stressful for the body. How do you walk women through understanding that intermittent fasting is right for them?
Yeah. So honestly, I think we've had like 2 clients that we've ever done fasting for, but it's been for a specific length of time. So like, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it might be, with a very specific purpose of whatever we're doing in a specific time window where they're still getting a specific amount of calorie intake in. They're still getting a protein in. They are people who are already able to sleep well. They have good energy because if you're extending that window and you are already someone who is struggling with sleep, energy, your mood is not good, hormonal symptoms are not great, we're already not hitting protein, we're already inconsistent with calories, that is just a recipe for disaster. And if you're someone who's already experiencing those stress type symptoms, like you're just adding fuel to the fire, right? And so fasting can be beneficial because technically it does open that fat burning pathway if it's not an overstress. So just like working out, right? Like you can work out and it's a good stress, right? Like it's like stress is good for our body. But if our bucket is already too full, this is what it always comes down to. If your bucket's already too full, it's going to overflow, increase inflammation, block fat burning, right? And so it's understanding, is it appropriate for this season of life? What I'm wanting to do, right? Because not eating increases muscle breakdown. And so if we're trying to build muscle, probably not fasting, right? So there's so many things you need to consider. How is it going to affect your body right now based on your hormones, your sleep, your energy, your digestion, your current food intake, your lifestyle, your goals, what you can actually tolerate? Like, I know why it's attractive. It's like, oh, sweet, I just don't eat till 11. Easy, right? Like so simple. But we see a lot of women who drop their calories, who start fasting, that start gaining weight. And so it's just understanding, is it for you right now? And the thing is, you don't have to fast to lose weight. You don't have to, right? And for me, being in the space that we're in, my first go-to is not to tell women not to eat. That's not what I want to be doing, right? I want to teach women how to eat to fuel their bodies, how to support their hormones, how to support their blood sugar, how to support inflammation, to improve their energy, to improve their sleep, their quality of life, their performance in the gym. And fasting just doesn't really fit there, right? Like for some people, they'll rotate into it, which is fine. And put once a year, they might do it for a month or something like that, which is like fine. If your body can tolerate it, you really need to understand pros and cons based on where you are right now. And it's not meant to be a lifestyle. I know some people do it as a lifestyle. I don't like doing it as a lifestyle because then you abuse that pathway. And then if you want to use that to try and get into fat loss, you can't, because your body is always adapting to what you're doing all the time, right? It's always adapting to the stimulus of the environment, the choices that you're making. And so you become a product of what you do all the time. Right? If you work out consistently 3 days a week lifting heavy, you will build muscle as long as you're like progressively trying to, increase your weights, right? If you are fasting all the time, cool, we're stimulating that fat burning pathway at the beginning maybe, but then it's not a big enough stimulus anymore. And so we want to take that away before we can't use it, right? It's a tool, but you use it at a specific time for a specific purpose. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Yeah. And I also think that there's, I agree with you. It depends, right? That would be my answer. It depends. Like you said, what are your goals? Here's what it could achieve. Here are some of the cons that come with it. Like what are you looking to achieve first and foremost, and is it going to interfere with anything else you're trying to do with your health?
Yeah.
I do feel though, and this may be just more of like observational or I read in some of the literature, but men can seem to do intermittent fasting as a lifestyle. Like I just had some guests at our house and like the man, was like, does intermittent fasting. He's been doing it for 30 years and he looks great. And I'm just like, wow. Like his wife,
wonders of
testosterone. Like, holy cow. Like, no, that just would not work for so we got in this discussion. Like men can do different things based on
men can do a lot more extreme diets, like very extreme. They can go lower calorie intake. They can be there longer. They can push themselves a lot more in the gym because they're built for physical stress. Like if you think back of like ancestral days, like that's what they were built for, right? They're made for. We're not. We're nurturers, we're gatherers. Like our bodies were not created for that, right? We're meant to carry babies, all these things, but like we're not the same. Like women are not tiny men. Stacey Sims says it all the time. Like our hormone profile is so different. What our body can tolerate is so different. And like our body is rhythmic in a month, right? Like we have our cycles.
Yes.
Men, like I worked with a doctor and he said it beautifully. Like women are like an orchestra where all the hormones have to be fine-tuned and like, everything has to be in like perfect coordination. There's multiple people involved. And then it's like this beautiful symphony. When we have a man, as long as testosterone's going, you're happy. It's just like, as long as you got the steady beat of the drum, simple, easy, things are like honestly pretty good.
Yes.
Orchestra a lot more complicated, right? And so it's understanding that because we're more complicated, because it's more finessing with our hormones, like there's a lot more places where things can go wrong. Whereas men, it's like, oh, for the most part, when it comes to hormones, it's going to be the main thing, right? And that's not to say there can't be other stuff, but they can tolerate so much more because they got one thing they're really trying to focus on versus women, there's a lot going on internally, right? And so it's just understanding that difference.
Right. Well said. Well, Stephanie, this has been a beautiful discussion. I know our listeners got a lot out of, us tweaking down and breaking down the different elements and the things that are in the bucket and how to remove some of the things in the bucket so they can get the weight loss they deserve. So if they want to learn more from you or work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the Metabolism and Menopause podcast is one of the best places in terms of getting information from us. So we have podcast episodes on every single hormone and question I think that we've ever had. So there's whatever you're looking for, I'm sure you can find there. But you can follow me on socials at VitalityOET.Stephanie. And then we also have a Facebook community called the Metabolism and Menopause by Vitality. There's over 27,000 women in there. We have so many guides and resources and webinar replays and everything that you could ever need in there as well. And then you can always just reach out to me personally. I'm always happy to chat in the DMs, and it's always me. I don't have someone in there answering for me. So there might be a little bit of delay. It takes me a while sometimes, so there'll be lots, but I will always reply.
Love that. Love that. All right, Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today. And listeners, we will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. If you're ready to take the next step to improve your health, wellness, and lifestyle goals, head over to www.epicu.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Again, that's EPICYOU.com. Please note that the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice.